So, yeah, let's go ahead and begin. We all know each other, so we don't have to start with introductions. We've already sort of done that. But we haven't talked about or introduced ourselves as contact experiencers. So, why don't we just do a brief introduction? Ra, if you open up the chat, you will see I have typed a few things here that we could maybe delve into as far as topics to discuss. So just sort of mention what your contact experiences are, when your last contact experience was, who you're being contacted by, where your contact experiences are taking place, what types of contacts you're experiencing, things like this, that's what your contact method or modality is, whether it's through out of body travel, uh, telepathy, channeling. It's just if you have a modality for that. I know that yours includes the painting, Rob, but I don't know if it includes more. um, And then I also just wrote here anomalies leading into conscious contacts, like if you have loss of time or something like that, what begins to happen before you're going to have a contact. Okay. You don't have to go into any of those things. You can just do a little introduction and say anything that you want to about yourself and your contact experiences.
Okay, well, should I start? Or did you want me to start? I don't know, I'm not hearing for some reason. I had strange experiences my entire life that I thought were spirits and ghosts my whole life. In 2011, 12, right around in that area, I had something that I call it my big awakening, my big epiphany. It was suddenly I could see that what I could never see before. I didn't want to admit that there was a very, very active ET kind of, if I can use it, presence in my life. I had what I thought was a near-death experience in the 80s, and I believe I was actually in a vehicle. I thought I was dead at the time, and I met people, and I had hand surgery, and I saw a lot of crazy screened images, and I remember leaving the vehicle and coming back, and I had another experience that I thought was a dream, with a weird dream with a sleepwalking thing, but I think that it was also actually, um, I believe maybe I was physically there. It sure felt like I was. I don't know for sure though, or not. Anyway, a lot of themes with different, almost, I had poltergeist almost activity happening at one time in my life. And at some point I accepted that this is what's going on. It all makes sense. Everything came together. It was like, this is what it is. This is the weird thing that's been happening in my whole life. And I made a decision that I wanted to try and call out to these beings, whoever they were. I wasn't really sure, but I wanted to ask a big question. Are you behind all of this? And I got an answer about a week later. I thought maybe I was going to see a UFO fly by or something, but I was in my kitchen and I was preparing dinner, and I felt like something came around my head, like a really tangible feeling, and a very, very clear voice started talking to me, and told me basically that the answer was yes, and called me a star child, and that was when the things began. And I at some point I went to hypnosis, and I did a regression to, well, I wanted to go into the alien stuff, but he didn't, the hypnotist wasn't comfortable with it. So I did a spirit guide meditation to meet, which I wasn't really, that much in tune with, that understanding at the time. And that is when the being, the entity that I call Ra'a really showed up, was during ice, and then again after that. But I saw a person who was like a dancing red dinosaur, and a tall green man who called himself Osiris, or Osiris, at the same time. And it made sense later on. It was like something from my childhood, actually. the dancing dinosaur, and it just went in this big circle. At this point in my life, I'm able to pretty much, I can close my eyes and go inside, and I can see what he's doing in real time. This being, who I believe comes and goes. I see when he travels, and I can see. Sometimes he shows me pictures instead of it's not just I'm just seeing this. There's like an interaction going on. Sometimes he hands me things, and the pictures become so clear and they're so real. I've also had a lot of I do believe I can, even though it kind of frightens me, the voice to head idea, that I do have sometimes just words and thoughts and pictures that are just incoming. And like I talked about in the other group, the lights and the orb phenomena, and the UFO sightings and that sort of.
Ra, you froze here on my end for the last minute. And I've had some people come home, so I'm going to step back into my space. Give me just a moment. Okay, Ra, did you finish your story? You have to unmute.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
I said,
I couldn't hear your question. I'm sorry.
Did we get to the conclusion of your intro?
I think pretty much I was just describing how this is translated into my art and the desire to my own reincarnational story, and how that all ties together.
Okay. Wow. And then, because you mentioned Ra, do you have a painting there that we could see?
Yeah. I might cause a landslide, so. This is probably, this is what he looks like physically. I don't know if you can see it. If I'm
I think
too
it's
low.
too big. Okay. I think I can see him there. Do you have a smaller one?
Or here's a better. This is
There we go.
I'm showing together communicating.
That is
He
so
speaks through me, and this I'm trying to.
so beautiful. God, I love the energy you put into your artwork. It's so familiar. It's the feeling of it is so familiar to me. I mean, the colors and the concepts and the feeling of it all, yeah, something about that. Okay, and so is Ra your basic contact, or are there others also?
Um, there were others that have come and gone, it seems, but he's always together with me, and this is always going to be and always has been. I understand.
Okay. And so you basically meet with him anytime you concentrate, you can have a face to face and sort of an additional field with him. Yeah,
Yes, it's
hands you things.
well, it's like it's almost like I'm seeing underwater, or it's like a different dimension. Yeah.
So you're able to make it through the membranes. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fascinating. And
yeah, and it's always like, and bring myself into this field and see my own hand and different things happening, and
yeah.
even interact, like tactile, like feel almost.
So almost
Yeah,
a full
something.
quote out of body experience.
Well,
Yeah. Okay, and I know that you also work through the modality with your contact through channeling, not just painting, but also channeling. So you have the visuals and the vocals
yes,
that you're bringing into play. Okay,
yeah.
all right. Thank you for that. Deshanta, let's hear it.
All right, I had to move inside. I knew when I was going to talk, it was going to be windy.
Yeah.
The green down there. Down, 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 down. Grab my green notebook. Yep. I think most of my contacts have been experiences, and then also going outside and having the orbs and the craft come in. But I wanted to show you a drawing that I did, one of probably my most memorable contacts, because I was trying to channel in the ETs that I was contacting through using my third eye. And I closed my eyes and I asked them what I needed to see, and this is what I saw. At first it was in my mind's eye, and every time I would close my eyes it would get bigger. And then what kind of freaked me out was we didn't have a TV in our living room. It was just an open white wall. And I forgot for about 30 minutes that I was even trying to do this. And I was just looking at the wall, and all of a sudden this image popped up in the living room on my wall, like it was standing there staring at me. They didn't say anything, but that was probably one of my most memorable. But I know that I'm about to have contact in my out-of-body experiences, because I'll get a ringing in my right ear, and then I get kind of like a fainting heaviness go over my body. It's like I drop down to the ground, and then there's a crack. There, explain that, if that makes sense. It done that yet, but yeah.
Okay, Deshanta, say that last part after the tones, and make sure you don't move when you talk. I notice that that's what makes it sometimes come in and out. Hold everything real still. You get the
Okay.
tones, and then what comes
That's
out,
okay.
the heavy feeling.
Yeah, my whole body feels like it's kind of like I'm gonna pass out, but it's more than that. It's like my whole body feels heavy and I just want to drop to the ground instantly.
Okay. And what do you do in that situation? Do you lay your body down to have the contact, or do you
Most of the time it's because I see a craft in the sky, so I just stand there and stare at the craft.
okay. And
I don't really
has
just standing there staring at it for a while.
has there yet to date been the awareness of being brought on board that craft, or only the awareness of standing ground level watching it?
There was one time that the craft came down to me, and then I saw myself in the craft looking down at Earth. And it was like nighttime. All I saw were these tiny little pinpoints of light, and they didn't call me by my name, Deshanta. I don't remember what they called me, but it almost looked like I was standing on glass looking down. And they told me that I was here to help humanity.
Did you get a visual of the type of craft it was, or is it just appearing as a light in the sky?
Sometimes it's a light, other times it's a full craft that has 3 rings of lights on the bottom, black.
So it's a circular or disc-shaped craft, or can you describe it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's circular. And it's always the same one. I don't ever see anything different.
Okay, and is there anything that you're creating with your contact experiences? Do you write, for instance, or I know you made the one drawing, but usually through these contact experiences, we're given a certain skill set and something that we begin doing ground level. Is anything?
I'm normally okay at drawing. I journal and sometimes I sketch, but I don't normally share those with anyone because I don't know how they'll react.
Or is there, and so you write, yeah. Is there any inclination to write a book? Do you feel like this will be going into a book?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Ever since it started, I have to write it. That's why I have this big binder. It's all of my experiences.
Mm-hmm. Do you have visual recollection of what the beings look like?
Sometimes, but I have to reference them to movie characters sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, what do they look like?
I don't know if you've seen the show Futurama,
No.
but there's one alien. He's from a different planet. I think the planet's called Persei 8 or something like that, but he looks very, very reptilian, very chunky, with a red cape, and he's just so friendly and goofy. And then there's another one, he looks human, but he's short, like my son. He's about my son's height. And every time I see him, he just comes up and hugs me. And that's all, we just hug. He feels like an old friend.
Nice. Okay. Do you feel complete there with that introduction, or is there something more you want to put through?
I feel pretty complete right now. Unless anything else pops in, I'll type it in the comments.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and step up next. So my main method or modality to achieve the contacts is the out-of-body experience. There are a variety of different ways my contacts occur. Like what Deshanta was saying, when I'm about to have one, I know I have to lay myself down and lay myself down fast, or I'm gonna fall down, literally fall down. So it's like that. I just start to get pulled in really fast, not slow. It doesn't feel like I'm starting to get sleepy and maybe I better lay down in the next half hour or anything like that. It's fast. It's get yourself into a horizontal laying position or fall down on the ground right now. So I usually lay myself down. This is when they're happening during the day. So I'll just lay myself down, and they come into the etheric version of my physical space, and I shift out into that etheric space also for the initial part of the contact. There's a variety of different kind of beings that come to my room, almost too many to mention, but the few that really stand out, one was a lupine being, a wolf being. There is a humanoid looking extraterrestrial that is white, just pure white from head to toe, almost like a chalky white, not like paper white, more like chalk white. This one takes me on board crafts and it's like this one is for quick fixes. Like if something in my biological system needs to be addressed and fixed quickly, this one is sent. The craft is in very local space, just above the house, generally not too far up, still in the atmosphere. And I will perceive myself on the table and being examined. I usually don't maintain too much awareness about this, but at least as much as what I have just said. The majority of my experiences with contacts are on the table. So physical etheric body examinations. They're generally going into this space at the back of the head, up into the nostrils, and the vagina. Always those three areas. It might include other areas as well, but always those three areas were being addressed. There's a variety of different craft that come in sightings I've had. One of the sightings was when I was still in the Santa Monica area. These contact experiences are generally associated with me being taken into views of humanity's future that involve catastrophic events, namely a tsunami in the area in which I was living at those times, which is the Santa Monica, Los Angeles area along the Coast Highway, but also along the whole of the California coastline. So one of the first contacts was on the San Francisco Bay Bridge, and a tsunami was taking place, and there was just hundreds, if not thousands, of ET craft in the sky during this event. That was one. One of them, I was directly in Santa Monica, looking right down Ocean Park at the ocean, and a tsunami is rising again. Just prior to being put there in that position to witness the beginning of the tsunami, I was actually on the Coast Highway just looking at the ocean, and I was, the ending of a contact experience was occurring. There was just a craft still there in the sky. I had been on the craft. There was awareness of me having been on the craft, but not a lot of conscious data of what occurred on it. What they wanted me to see was the outside of the craft and the location I was in, which I did. Again, just right there on the Coast Highway, just shortly off of Ocean Park Boulevard in the Santa Monica area. And it was an egg-shaped craft, a teardrop or egg-shaped craft. And it was opal in color, and it had an opalescent color hues that were sort of shimmering off the outside of it, and I'm trying to bring them forward right now. I know it was pink, it was yellow, it was a particular shade of blue, but over this pearly color. Yeah, beautiful craft, one of the most beautiful ones I've seen. The ones when I was on the bridge up in the San Francisco area, those were the traditional saucers. Yeah, and independently manned craft, small craft. This one was larger. Another one I saw was in the Las Vegas area, which is where I was born and raised. I have a question for you, by the way, about this, because there's a lot going around about Area 51, and I want to ask some of you why this is. Because this is an area I spent a lot of time around and in and on growing up. Being from Las Vegas, everybody, of course, knew about Area 51. Let me, before I go into that, tell you about one more sighting I had that was out. It was horrible. It was a horrific sighting. There's two parts to it. In one location, I'm on Main Street in Santa Monica, and there are up in the sky, I don't want to say jellyfish like looking craft, and the sky is just full of them, again, like swarm of these jellyfish looking craft, and they're coming down, they're touching ground, and my heart's beating out of my chest. I'm trying to save some people that are on the street before I'm sort of pulled out of that location and put in Las Vegas, in the lakes area of Las Vegas, which is the last area in which I lived before I moved to California. And again, I'm looking in the sky, and this craft is just, this is the kind of thing that will make you drop to your knees. it makes me feel that this particular contact was an event of another third dimensional consciousness making it into our third dimensional space. This was a dominion craft. This was here for mm, the annihilation of the human race, something like this. But it was enormous. It was a mother craft, and it was hovering in pretty close to local space, meaning down into the atmosphere. It wasn't going to land. It seemed like that was as close as it needed to. That was a landing, even though it would appear it's still quite high up. That's not the size ship that would ever actually touch physical ground. But it was black or slate, dark, 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 dark slate black or slate gray. And it was like on the outside of it, it was stepped, like that, like squares, like, came something off the outside of it, was like this. And just enormous. And that color and scout craft were coming out of it. And I didn't pay too much attention to what the scout craft were looking like, only that a great many, hundreds, if not thousands, were coming out of it at the time. So those are some sightings that I didn't like very much. And they did involve contact. But I did not retain the data, and I'm very glad that I didn't, because of the ominous feeling and knowing in me about what type of event that was. Let's see, what else? I sometimes am contacted by other humanoid, very, very Earth humanoid looking beings that just simply either are not from our local planet, or are and are graduated from it and are maintaining a similar structure, body structure now as to what they did then. So one of these beings' name is Sokesh. Sokesh comes around sometimes, and is from a here on the planet. When he was here, he lived in the Mediterranean area, and this is where people are wearing just sort of white smocks and sandals, very Jesus era looking clothing. And this is a mentor. This is somebody who helps me understand, in part at least, why I am here, and the energy in particular that I'm here to help bring. It's an energy that comes through a particular, expansion of awareness. And we have these amazing dialogues, sitting next to him and speaking with him. I think I was him in that lifetime. I mean, that's sort of what comes to me. It's like me talking to me in that body structure, and from its advanced state now to me and where I am here in this earth life carnation. And the feeling that's always there when I'm in communion with him and communicating is very nice, very special. I think that's probably connected also to some lifetime that I lived as, one moment, as an Essene. So I was taken into a lifetime once where I got to see my lifetime in which my parents were the Essenes, Essene. These are the people that taught Jesus and continued the documenting of that information after his passing. I had never even heard the word when I had the experience. I had to look it up when I got back. But anyway, it feels connected to that. The indigenous Indians or indigenous consciousness from other planetary bodies come to visit me a lot. So we could call this the Indians. And there's a variety of different ones that come. The very first one who came was Mesahari, When I was very first activated to awaken, Mesahari was who came to greet me into the additional field space. He came appearing as a boy, 15 years old, absolutely perfect, beautiful dark skin, jet black hair tied back at the nape of the neck like a woman, wearing a white sash in the hair, also tied like a woman would here at the nape. And a white loincloth. I know that a lot of what I'm visually seeing in some of these experiences isn't exact to what's there, but the concepts, when any of the beings come and they're wearing stark white, I know they are, quote, my people. So that piece of data comes through, and often the ones who come through will always be dressed in stark white. I just know they're part of my groups, my soul group, my cluster. And on that David Bowie, when he passed, he came to visit me. He also is a part or associated with my group, showed up wearing stark white pants, and that's it. And he came to simply tell me I needed to move more, that I was too sedentary. In particular, it would be good if I danced. And he danced with me and, got me going. He also combined his consciousness into my consciousness field and is sharing this experience with me ground level here forward. We invited him in. He wanted to continue in physicality, and we allowed him to do that. So he is a part of the consciousness that is here now with me. And I think is going to be involved in helping me open further my vocal channel. He says I need to move, I need to dance. He's the one that gets me going. Yeah, so a lot of different types and varieties of contacts. I could go on and on and on. But most of the ones that most planetary people would be interested in and consider contacts are my experiences on the table, the abduction type, where I'm taken from my physical space. I am in some degree of fear, generally from the beings who come right down into my etheric space, real close to my physical space to get me. And yeah, taken on the table, experimented on, upgraded, fixed, all of that. Oh, and lots of programs, of course. The hybrid program, for instance. So participated in dozens and dozens of programs. Does anybody have anything they want to add or push off into from that?
One of the things that I didn't mention was that my daughter and both of my daughters have had experiences and were experiencers. And my oldest daughter, it's something I don't talk about very much. It's rather uncomfortable. But I do believe that she was a hybrid of a larger percentage than what we see here normally. And I had, I'm certain that I was involved, with this understanding. Her father and I were also missing for 2 days in the desert, which was a little bit crazy. And it was right around that time that I ended up pregnant. But and had missing pregnancies and things like that in the past. But yeah, it's something that's for whatever reason is very difficult to talk about.
I can relate to this. I myself was going to bring in one of the hybrids. The pregnancy was terminated, and that did not happen. Years later, I am being brought into direct experience with her. That is also one of my contacts in groups of people I'm in contact with. Her name is Amelita. I did not know that this was a part of the hybrid program and a part of my uh, program to bring in a more advanced being until much later, until just a few years ago, actually. I just thought it was a normal child, and that child did not make it to life. But was shown that this child was brought out of my womb and into an artificial womb and absolutely made it to life, lives on board craft in local space. She did not want to leave me. She understands why I chose not to have her ground level. She's very understanding. She comes directly into my consciousness, uh, uh, my mind body system. When she comes in, it's a fully feelable. There is an alteration in my experience. There's an alteration in space. Everything glows more. There's additional colors. Much more light appears in the visual field, and it feels just like my heart is on fire, like I couldn't possibly have any more love or love that wanted to emanate than this. So it's this type of an experience. And yeah, she just comes in every now and again to have a look around, but she comes in directly through me. Yeah, directly into my experience field. Very fun. She says she's not the only one who does, that there are two other children, two boys, and others. So, Ross, say more about your birth.
Um, about my about my hybrid understanding, or
Well, you
well,
had
I believe.
a
Oh,
birth.
sorry.
I say you had an
My
actual physical birth. Your child made it to physical ground.
daughter, yes, she was diagnosed with a 1 in 22 million rare genetic disorder. She was had, for whatever, she had a very, very different appearance. They She went to like some of the world's best specialists, and it was they could not, it was just a recessive trait that's like there was only like 3 people in the world that have this condition. But there was more than just her different DNA and everything that they couldn't explain. That was there was a time when she was actually physically missing for about 2 hours. And she passed away when she was almost her 14th birthday from the condition that she had, which caused the head to grow too large, and it actually compresses the spinal cord. But she was a very, very, very different person. Anyone that knew her, the children in her class, she was not different mentally in any way. She just looked very, very different, and her understanding was, she was an incredibly strong person. And that's Christy, and I'm able to connect with her sometimes. She feels very, very far away and very light. I have 2 other children that I feel that I connect with, that are out there, that are actually, this may sound a little bit strange, but I believe that in this lifetime and in other lifetimes as well, even though we're almost, the understanding is that we're basically 2 versions of or different versions of the same person that split in half for whatever reason, and had children. I know it sounds, had children with each other, with ourselves, I guess you would say. And it's just amazing.
She's
There
not,
was I'm sorry.
she's not still with us. Ground level.
Which one is? No.
You're speaking with her in the past tense.
Yes, she passed away at 13 years old.
Mhm. Ah, bless her. What is her name?
Kristalina.
Kristalina. Oh, how appropriate. That's very close to Amelita. Okay. All right. How are you doing? That's been some time ago. That's
Yes, yeah.
uh-huh. Yeah. Do you ever paint her?
I have somewhere. I don't have it with me. I think it's at my other house. But I do have a painting where I painted her how I saw her in as more of an ET form, and she had um like light bluish skin, and yeah, I have it somewhere.
Oh, I wish you would have brought it. We never know what we're going to bring up here because we don't know who's going to show up. I wish more people would click the buttons as to who is going to attend, because then it helps me sort of get a feeling for where the energy might go. I can do it on a dime too, but still. Who wants to go? I want to go into Area 51. This last week on Facebook and in various other places, I'm noticing all these memes going around about Area 51 and what's his name? Um, the guy that was from Las Vegas that, oh, I can't think of his name right now. Help me out, Ra. Everybody makes fun of him.
Bob Lazaar.
Bob
Bob,
Lazaar. That's what I was thinking.
yeah. So yeah, Bob
Yeah.
is a Las Vegan like myself. Now, see, I relate to Bob, but and because I spent so much time on Nellis Air Force Base, and as a kid, breaking in through the fences at Area 51, and when I was a child, it was interesting. I was never scared in Las Vegas as a child. I could go out at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, walking around with nobody with me, wearing a bathing suit, because it was so damn hot that's what we clothed ourselves in back then. And I never felt scared. I always knew I was protected. That presence was so strong with me, when I lived in Las Vegas. And there was a communication from my contacts with me then. I came through as a sort of meter. Like I would know how fast to take my steps or how slow to take my steps, by this meter. And I would know when I was supposed to turn, and I knew if I was supposed to sit down somewhere, you know and yeah, it sort of directed me. And so all of this was happening when I was a child even then. So I'm very aware of the ET presence there. I'm very aware of the probability of that energy existing on that Air Force base. It was very strong. It drew us all, especially as kids. Not just the interest in it, not just the fact that we weren't supposed to go over there and the fences were supposedly, electric fences where we were going to get hurt. We all wanted to go there. So why is this thing going around about Area 51 now and Bob Lazaar? I don't get it. Fill me in. Does anybody know?
I think there's a bunch of people that are trying to raid Area 51 because they want to get in and see the aliens. But I don't know if they're actually going to do it.
If they're still there, I mean, they were probably moved back when, people started, when Area 51 made it to the map, because it was always there, but you could not find it on any maps. But some events began happening that made Area 51 have to put itself on the map. When Area 51 had to put itself on the map, chances are, everything was then relocated. But the entire state of Nevada is an enormous cave network. I don't know if you guys know this, But the cave networks that run through Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico are huge. I'm sure that it's connected all through the United States, but I know it's all connected in those areas, and those areas I'm highly drawn to. Desert areas, caves, and that energy, that energetic, that dynamic that is not local. You feel it through yourself. You know it's there. It's fascinating to you. You love it. I always just want to sit and meditate in it. Most of my life would just go out into the middle of the desert. It was everywhere, and just meditate. And it's just very easy to connect. Very easy to connect. And going out to the caves, you know stuff is out there. You just know stuff is out there. And of course, the Grand Canyon is there. And stuff is there. You don't know what, you just know that there is. So yeah, I can't figure out what people are raising on Area 51, and Bob in particular, he seems such a nice guy to me. I mean, he seems very Las Vegan. We're a very odd, maybe bunch of people, but when I come across another native Las Vegan, I know it immediately. Yeah, they're so down to earth. Not like normal Las Vegas populace. Those are the people that come from other places, and populate there to, do what Las Vegas is known for. But that's not the locals. That's not the natives. We're very different people. Very, very down to earth. Yeah. So why is everybody against Bob? Why? Yeah. Tell me that. Do you have any feeling about, I know that somebody did a documentary on him recently, and that's probably why all of this is being brought out. It's out there and for sale now.
For myself, it's interesting, the desert connection and all of that. When I first was introduced to the being Ra, I understood that where he lived was within, I don't know if it was an entirely three-dimensional thing, but it was in the area of Los Alamos. And it was very interesting because I actually met someone that lived in Los Alamos that claimed to have met an entity named Ra that when he saw my paintings, he and everything, and it's like, okay, so there's this thing with Los Alamos. I don't believe that's necessarily. I don't know, the whole thing with Area 51. I really get the thing really there, that they're going to get in a lot of trouble with people. I'm not sure really. It seems like the media is promoting this almost, like they're encouraging it. I saw it, I don't watch television, but when I'm working, my employer has her television on sometimes, and they were talking about reading Area 51 and that it was a video game designer started this whole thing. As you know, I've really, this last week, I really got to a place where I am divorcing myself from ufology in many ways. I can't argue with these people anymore about, who this is right, this person's good, this person's bad, to the stars, and Bob Lazaar and all this stuff. And I don't know. It's difficult to talk to people when they are so convinced that this is where things are because they were told by history. Told by something. I don't know.
I like Bob, but I think that what they need to do, instead of raiding Area 51, they need to dig underground where S4 is supposed to be.
Anyone, I will tell you,
That's is hidden.
any news coming from the mainstream is designed specifically to disprove everything. It's designed for that. Of course, they're going to go into areas where things no longer are. I mean, it's almost silly. The whole idea of disclosure coming through the media. of disclosure coming through our government is ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Why is this not being seen? Disclosure is coming right through the center of ourselves here. And why millions of people would be overlooked, and for a government official to be saying something makes no sense. It is so insane. I get thrown way off my rocker when, because at this point it's millions of people with sightings, with direct contacts, with information to create technologies that have not existed here and are clearly beyond what we have in our current scope. There's just so much evidence that at this point, anybody who is nodding their head just isn't interested, isn't looking, isn't interested, and isn't looking. They're just going on their own basic programming that they came into the consensus structure with and just parroting it. Period, because anybody who looks into it will find plenty, including military personnel, including presidents saying that they had sightings. all of that. So I don't know. If you want to put us all in the nut house, all right. Your choice. So what are we doing? Let's go into that disclosure. What is our part in disclosure? What do you feel your part is in disclosure? Deshanta, I know you're writing the book. Ra, I know you're doing the paintings. I know that we're all out there discussing it. But what more? What are we disclosing when we're in disclosure?
For myself, I feel the most important thing, if I can communicate anything to people that are interested in the subject or that are not quite, that are kind of like on the fence, or maybe they're having something that's drawing them to the subject for some reason, is the idea that there's nothing really, to fear about this. This isn't we're being farmed and they're going to come and eat us and all this. It's not. It's never happened. People have been in contact for the entire history of the planet, and there's we're all still here. I think that also another thing is that people that think that they're going to be saved, that they I'm waiting for the aliens to come and take me home, and I don't think that it really works like that. It's kind of like I have to disappoint people, but I think that we're here and we have to do the work ourselves. It's not like someone's going to come and save us or take us someplace that's better or something like that. That's what's important to me to communicate to people.
I have a question. Why do you think disclosure did not happen way back when we discovered Earth was not the center of the galaxy? With the thought that Earth is the center of the galaxy comes, the thought that life would be put here, perhaps, and nowhere else. But when we discovered that Earth was not the center of the galaxy, that the sun was the center of our solar system, and aligned center with the galaxy, why do you think disclosure didn't just automatically occur then? Of course, then there's not just life here, but because there's life here, there must be life elsewhere. If we're not the center, if we're not all important, if we're on an equal level playing ground with all of the other planets and all of the other systems and all of the other galaxies and universes, then why didn't it just automatically happen then? What stopped it?
I personally think that not the governing bodies, the media, all of this the agenda to keep us as consumers and in order and all this. It would be very bad for them if people realize that we don't need them anymore, and we're not the apex of creation. And it's the religion comes into it also, the idea that God didn't only create Earth and put each person one by one into a human body, and you are here to dominate and control the planet. There's a really conflict of ideas with that.
Okay, so the control system. I agree. And now, what is the control system for? Why is it here? Let's just basically say it's here to ensure a third dimensional experience. So the control system is put in place to ensure that the third dimension and the third dimensional experience stays the third dimension and a third dimensional experience. Otherwise, it couldn't be had. So these aren't bad guys. These are guys put here, by the creator itself, to hold the status quo, to hold that frequency. But the control system is not all powerful. It has to work and 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 work on us constantly in order to get us to not grow out of that frame of mind in which we're thinking we're the center of the galaxy. So there has to be something more. What happened to humanity? Why wasn't there more graduation? Why did consensus not graduate into the fourth dimension? See, another thing that comes into play here is you realize that as a consciousness grows, as awareness grows, as our thinking mind grows in its capacity, that in itself is graduation from a third dimensional construct into a fourth dimensional construct, a graduation from the third grade into the fourth grade. And this graduation happens for us individually, and it happens in a similar fashion collectively as the collective consciousness of humanity. And that's what ends up putting Earth into the fourth dimension. The planet actually graduating itself. But I think discussing what it is that has been preventing us individually and collectively from graduating out into the fourth is an important part of the discussion of disclosure. That's the important part of what's being disclosed to me. The third dimension, which is the first dimension, 1, 2, and 3 is the third dimension. That is a planetary experience where you're locked onto your own planet, can't get off your own planet. Experience is purely on your own planet and in your personal body system. Going out into the next gradient out, the 4, 5, 60, the next harmonic out, that's the galaxy. That's when you get off your planet and now you're a part of the galaxy and can travel and communicate with galactic consciousness. So your sphere gets larger, your sphere of experience gets larger. What do people fear more than anything else? More than ETs, what do people fear more than anything else? Anybody have an answer?
I'd say death or the unknown.
Yeah, death and the unknown is what I think too.
Okay, well, death is a specific example of what I'm thinking of. People fear change more than anything else. And death, of course, is a change from one state into another. So it's just a form of change. Uh, but this is, I think, what is keeping most people from opening their minds, their heart, their thought complexes. Change. People fear change more than anything else, even small changes, even moving from one house to another house. so, so this is, I think, why we're seeing all of this explosive activity of the planet causing people to be displaced and um, losing, their possessions and things like this. It's causing a great level of change. It's shaking things up because people have got so rock hard, static, still and unmoving, that they're just, right now there's immense change happening, and if we can't keep up with the changes, we start to feel it in our bodies. They start to go down. And those are the two options we have right now. Go up or go down, you know. So this is a part of what I am hoping to disclose through the disclosure movement. It's more in the arena of healing. What happens if you hold your arm like this and never move it? There are ascetics who practice this. They will put their arm up and they don't move it. Well, what happens is the tension and the tightness and the pain begin to make it so that you can't move it. The muscles have atrophied, and the tendons and such have all wrapped around the muscle in a way to make it so that you can't move it anymore. There's no more motion possible. And when there starts to be motion, when you start to force the motion, it's very painful. So it locks, it freezes in that position. And that's what has happened to humanity. They've locked, they've frozen in the same mindset, the same energy structures, the same thought programs, and the mechanism that allows any expansion and growth has atrophied. They are just locked and frozen there in that format. And getting them out of it is going to be painful. You know, if you don't move, then you lose the movement. You know, when we're kids, we can do splits and put our toes in our mouth. And as we get older, because we don't, keep ourselves flexible, now we can barely, reach down and touch our toes without extreme anguish. So we begin to get tight, tension builds, the muscles atrophy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is a part of what we're dealing with when we're dealing with disclosure, when we're dealing with ET contact, when we're dealing with growing out from the 3rd grade into the 4th grade. So how do we help people not see extraterrestrials? How do we get them unfrozen? What's our part in that? We're doing it. We're doing it partially. We may not be focusing on it as the sole focus of our life, but we're doing it. We put paintings of extraterrestrials out there. We have intelligent contact, intelligent disclosure, intelligent cognition of the events we're experiencing, so that when we relay them to others, they can't so easily write this off as just somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, because clearly this person does seem to know what they're saying. If they're not crazy, they at least fully believe what they're saying. Does that create a movement in that person? Sure, they moved from on a dime just saying you're nuts to, well, you know, she doesn't seem nuts. She actually seems like she believes what she's saying. And that's movement. That's a little bit of progress. Yeah. You do the paintings and you put the energy in there, and when somebody sees them, it has an effect. Deshanta writes the book and the book goes out and people see the book, you know. It may just be the cover of the book or the title of the book, or include actually getting the book and reading the contents of the book. Who knows? But it has an impact. And the more that we are able to hold intelligent discourse with others on the subject, when we can see into it ourselves on a deeper scale and verbalize it in an understandable way, you know, this all helps. And unlike the people who have very strong views over who is, you know, lying and who isn't, which is just insane, because unless you can shift your consciousness into theirs and experience those moments directly in first person yourself in order to see if what they're saying is true or not, then, you know, best to just shut up. Listen to what they have to say, and if it moves you, it moves you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And go on to the next. Bring into your sphere those people that, you know, are you're most connecting with. Expand your sphere as a group. Keep going out and out and out. As we group, this is another thing, grouping with others. This is another way we help, because we're not an island anymore. We're not one person, we're 12 people. We're 144 people, you know, putting out some good work on the subject. Yeah, sort of collectively, where all avenues are being addressed. Those who are more physical or tactile and need solid, you know, evidence of things. Those who are more visual, you know, have the paintings and all of that, more auditory, the channeling, and, you know, all of the different formats. Who wants to add something? I'm going to mute.
One of the interesting things that I found since just being open and on the internet, live with and everything, is that it's really wonderful to see when people begin having their own experiences. Like I was talking about, my younger daughter has begun acknowledging her own experiences, and the people that I live with, they've all seen something and have changed their understanding, and their understanding is actually expanded. And I think that that if people could just get this wonder again, and instead of just looking at a screen like this, it's waiting for something to be shown. It's something you have to go within yourself and find, and no one can do it for you. It's just how I feel. It's hard to explain to people. It's like you have to be this, and they live with you and they see this, and the energy becomes different. And
So this is
I
important.
wanted to add, sorry?
Go ahead, Deshanta.
I wanted to add, other than, you know, sharing our experiences and just talking about it, I've actually started to try and invite my friends and family out to my house because I live in the country, so I have a clear view of the sky. So I try and invite them into like a big meditation circle with my crystal grids and just setting intentions to invite our benevolent guides to come and talk with us and just be in our present moment. So far, I haven't had as many takers as I thought, but we're slowly but surely taking off.
So yes, all of this is important. Inviting other people in to have direct experience themselves. And sometimes this involves just being brave enough to talk with them on the subject. And there's very unpainful ways to begin bringing this in. One of the things that I just start doing is anybody that I see during the day, I ask them how they slept. Everybody's always willing to tell you how they slept. And then as soon as I have my opportunity, I'll ask them what they dreamt about. And if they say they don't dream, this is my avenue in. You know, everybody dreams every night. Not everybody remembers their dreams every night. And so I just plant that seed and I keep asking them anytime I see them, how'd you sleep? What'd you dream last night? Bring me a dream. I'll make it fun. You know, bring me a dream. And so I plant seeds in particular codes like this. And before I know it, they're bringing me a dream. They're starting to have some recall. And even just little things like this, as soon as it's perfectly normal and natural for us to have that conversation, I may bring something else into the equation, you know, more directly extraterrestrial related. Maybe not so immediately. It depends on who it is. But being able to broach the subject as though it's as natural as the day is important. So who among us is willing today to broach the subject with someone